Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the agenda and minutes?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda from February 24th by Sean,
Second.
seconded by Matt. All in
Motion to
favor?
approve the minutes.
All in favor?
Is there a motion to approve the minutes from
Yes.
February 9th?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Sean, second.
Second.
Gary, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. School committee chairperson comments. So I reached out to all of the town administrators, select boards, finance committees with the Thursday multi-board meeting coming up 2 days. So we sent an email out. We heard back from a few, but we've scheduled that, sent out the agenda. Hopefully we get some good attendance. Looking forward to that. Also, I think with the snow, what we should do is start having parents come shovel out so we can have school, especially after a break. That's public comments. There's no one in the room. Anyone online?
I see no hands raised.
All right. With that, on to student comments.
I can go first. With the win over BBT 2 weeks ago, the boys basketball qualified for the state tournament.
Nice.
So we'll be heading to Falmouth on Thursday to take on the Falmouth Clippers. And then also before break, I wanted to highlight 9 student athletes who on the 11th formally declared their commitments to continue their sports in colleges. And also included where they're going with the dog.
In addition to that, over break, Nipmuc had 2 state champions named, both in track and swim. So we had Dash Brea, who's named state champion in the weight throw, and then Kaden McKibben, who was state champion in the 100-meter freestyle. And this makes them the 5th and 6th individuals in school history to capture individual state titles. So yeah.
Nice. Congratulations. Any questions, comments for student reps? All right. The superintendent and administrator reports.
Okay. We probably should coordinate because I keep having the same the same highlights as you. I'm like, I think I want to talk about all that. No, it's all good. I have some pictures. So
Okay.
We'll add to it. Are you able to pull that up, Sam? It pulls up the district update. I'll just kind of run through some of the district events that are coming up. Earlier today, at 5 o'clock, I had a superintendent advisory group, first meeting for that, which is great. And we originally had a scheduling committee that was supposed to be today, and then it'll be postponed. So I have to update a couple of these dates that I have in here. Tomorrow, I have the Worcester County Superintendent Legislative Breakfast. I'm part of 2 roundtables for superintendents, one because we're on the border of Worcester County and Tri-County. And so the legislative breakfast is tomorrow, so I'll be heading to that at Boyd Cars right in the morning. And that's where we go and we advocate on certain bills that we think they should support, and also the specific issues related to funding. After that, I can give you an update just to let you know what we talked about and what some of the highlights and priorities were. We have slightly different priorities for Worcester County compared to Tri-County based off of the demographics and the size of the school districts. We have the multi-board meeting coming up this Thursday. I'll be attending the Read Across America event on Monday at Memorial. We have a mascot committee meeting on Monday. And just as a reminder, I don't know if I do have something in there related to it. I'll talk about that in a second. And then I have the Tri-County. So we have a bunch of meetings. It has been a week of rescheduling so far, lots of meetings. I'm not sure what day it is today, but I don't have it in my update, but I really want to thank the town, like DPW, highway, all of the work. They've been working sometimes they're understaffed, they're working all throughout the night and still working now. And also just our staff as well. They all came in, and just coming in, you can see it's all cleared out. We're good to go. And that's not an easy feat with the amount of snow that we've had. I am keeping an eye on the snow for tomorrow morning. There's an inch or so coming in around the time of when we're coming into school. That would not be a snow day. Just so we're clear. But
A little delay.
and I hope we don't have to have a delay because we have lots of rescheduled events tomorrow as well. But I'm keeping an eye on that and we'll see. If it's a little bit, then we'll be good to go. All right, the next slide under district highlights. I just wanted to, this came out in the Coach's Corner, which is the athletic newsletter that came out to Nipmuc, and it came out right before break. And so starting right before break and going through March 9th, they're starting to accept feedback, nominations, suggestions, thoughts related to the mascot. And there's a link in here to the form. This will also, other people ask, when is this going to go out to more people? It'll be in my newsletter that goes out at the end of the week, and then we'll see if it can get out to the other schools as well. So it just was released. So there's plenty of time. Don't be worried. We want as much input as we can from the community on this, but wanted to let you know that that went out as a follow-up from our previous meeting. Coming up, we have the spring sports registration. And we also have the information night. So that's coming up pretty soon as we're closing out. Hopefully, we're going to extend our basketball and some of our seasons as long as possible. So I'm planning on that, but I know we're starting to close out on our winter sports and heading into the spring sports, even though it doesn't feel like spring yet. I also put up all the names so you can see it. It was shared with you, but I have all the names of those that committed to collegiate athletics. So you have that up there. Some we know really well. Who might be related to some of us in here. So that's congratulations on that. That's always exciting. And next slide, I'm not going to read all of this off similarly, but we have the large championship information, and our team did great. And I know that we both talked about some of this, but I wanted to be able to highlight this, and I'll put this on the website or in the newsletter after, so people are able to see it if they're not at Nipmuc. And recent highlights, I didn't get the, what was it, wrestling? Weight pro. Yeah, that's the one I didn't get in because that came in after I put this together. And I just changed this. You guys are traveling Thursday for basketball, but good luck to you. And that's it. Wanted to make it kind of brief tonight, but wanted to focus on a lot of those highlights that just got released this past week. Questions on any of that?
That's just really cool. See all these kids.
Right?
Wow.
Pretty neat. Imagine what it's going to be like when we have track and field actual facilities, right? How much even better. It's going to be fantastic. All right. So let's see. That was my update there. Oh, I didn't put it in the slides. I just had a couple strategic priority progress. MyCap grant at this, I just wanted to pull them out. There's some of the updates that I gave to you, but just to say publicly, we submitted a MyCap planning support grant at Misco Hill. If it's approved, we're adding into our agendas for us to have you approve it before we spend on that, related to some of the updates in one of our policies. And we'll bring that forward before we get to that point. We have drafted an initial framework the last couple of weeks for responsible AI integration for the district as our next step. It's just a beginning draft. We'll be getting feedback and continue to work on it, but we made some progress on that. And we just received I don't know if it was last week during break or the right at the end of the week before, but our corrective action plan report from our tiered focus monitoring review. We had a number of indicators at the beginning of the year. Frank's been working on it and with his team for the whole fall and submitted all of their progress reports. And it was reduced from 10 down to 2 remaining. And there was notes that I shared with you, but one of them was related, they just couldn't evaluate it. It was because we didn't have, it was related to 3-year-olds coming in and we just didn't have any. So they have to push that off till they can evaluate that. We're doing that right. And another one was related to timelines that after an IP meeting occurs to get it out within 5 days. And we're working on that. And so it's pretty good, making a lot of progress in a short amount of time. So I want to thank the team for their work on that. So we're going to jump into the teaching and learning presentation. Michelle. Into ELA.
If there will be folks online, like for this, because we thought maybe it was going to be virtual. Oh.
That's okay.
So at the right time, I'll like go, can you check? And we'll see if we can get them on screen.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll add the.
Awesome.
Before Cheryl goes, something just to point out in our policy IGD, smaller curriculum changes that are, that are more minor, I guess, would be come to me for a recommendation. Anytime we have though a large purchase, we'll always bring it forward for approval here at the school committee, which is what I did 5 years ago when we came forward with one bridge for 5 years and we came forward with bridges. Those of you who've been around, when we've had that, but wanted to make sure we were doing, especially, I wanted to be able to allow the team that's worked on it to kind of round out. They talked about the process of working on it at the beginning of the year and to be able to come forward and say why they chose what they did. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Awesome. So thanks for having us. Sincerely, you're talking to an us. They're out there somewhere logged on. And they are really the stars of the show. I want you all to know how much our teachers put into this review and hear why they think that this is going to be the best resource for our kids. So online tonight, somewhere out there, are Maria DeRusso. She's the instructional coach for the district. Sierra Fiore, a grade 5 teacher. Erica Hall, who's a Spanish immersion teacher, grade 4 at Clough. Michelle McDonald, who's a kindergarten teacher. Brianna Zaleski, who's our reading specialist at Clough. And I'm gonna take the majority of the slides because they're gonna talk to you at one point if they're out there. So we've been talking to you about our ELA curriculum review process since November 2024. And in that time, over 30 educators came together. They identified a vision for literacy and in English and in Spanish. And they also went through a desk review, identifying 5 high-quality curriculum resources that were highly rated. They whittled it down to 2. They did a field test 8 weeks long this September with those 2 resources. They came back together after collecting feedback from students and other colleagues, and they made a unanimous decision from pre-K through 8, which is pretty unprecedented, to adopt the same publisher curriculum, Amplify. And if you can go to the next one. And it will be CKLA, ELA, CKLA, Caminos, and ELA. There are 3 different products. These are the priorities that we brought to you last spring when we finished our visioning process, and they are the priorities that guided our curriculum review and recommendations. This is the curate report for the resource that we are recommending. It is highly rated, meets all expectations on Ed Report.
Do you want to tell them what the curating and reports are?
Sure thing. Yep. And all but one meets all expectations on Curate. Curate and Ed Reports are 2 different bodies that rate curriculum resources. And they do that in order that school districts and educators know how resources are meeting different standards. Because you can imagine there are products and publishers and vendors out there that say that they're producing materials that are good for kids, but they aren't always meeting standards. So these 2 bodies, they review these resources and they give them ratings in a number of different categories, many of them that match up with our priorities already. So we are and we didn't actually field test or even desk review anything that wasn't highly rated, because it was important to us that the resources that we bring to the district are highly rated. Do you have questions about that?
What are the concerns about accessibility?
So in this space, some of the folks that we've talked to have said that some of the digital platform is harder to navigate for kids. That's what I've heard. And so knowing that, and this is also teacher rated, so ed reports, this category meets all expectations. But in curate, it was partially meeting this expectation. Also, it's important that this is the 2015 version. Is that right? Yeah. And we will be purchasing the next version. So what they do is they regard their review ratings and they try to improve upon them each time. So our experience with this was actually that the resources were very accessible and that there were many scaffolds and extensions also in the resources. So we think that when this is rated again, it will meet all, but that's where the rating was when we used this.
A similar thing happened when we had the original, like 10 years ago, the Reading Wonders. So it was overall highly rated from ed reports, but then there were some areas that we found as we were trying to use it that we navigated and said, oh, this doesn't work, or the writing or some of the phonics. But some things started to improve in the next round that came out about 2020. So they're always trying to address it. And we always say there's no perfect unicorn of a curriculum resource. There's always going to be elements that don't quite fit.
So these were some of the reasons why we recommend Amplify. It is highly rated, but in addition to that, it's grounded, the construct of the resource is grounded in the science of reading. That means that they really focus on skills, especially phonics and phonemic awareness in the early literacy, because that's been proven to be important for the way students learn to read. And then it focuses on comprehension side by side. So there's a knowledge section and a skills section to the resource. Also, and so I've gone through the next couple of bullets, there's daily writing that's embedded in the resource, which is important to us and also something that our current resources don't have. There are embedded scaffolds and challenges that effectively bring our ability to attend to the diverse needs of learners into the resource. It's blended, so it's digital and paper-based. Caminos is based on literacy research as opposed to being a translation of a text, which was more what our last resource was. And for ELA, which is the 6 through 8 version, it's highly focused on comprehension, which our 6 through 8 teachers have never had a high quality resource to utilize. And that's a piece that really stood out for them. Keep going. So here's where I'm hoping some of our colleagues are on, that they could share some of the reasons why they think this is a great resource.
So we can, anybody who wants to do it.
Yeah. So you thought we had the biggest audience of any school committee meeting, but it's actually the presenters.
Hi, Cheryl. This is Maria. I don't know if I'm doing this right. Can you hear me?
Maria, you are, and you're live. You're hot
Okay.
on the mic.
All right. Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm
So we can
projecting
hear
well.
you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for allowing us to join you today from home. Shrewsbury is still, the roads are still pretty bad, so I decided to join this way. So thank you for letting me.
We're delighted you could be with us this way.
And thank you, Cheryl, for introducing the whole program and our selection process. A couple things I just wanted to chime in for. One of the things that stood out for me with this program is the vertical alignment from K through 5 especially. And then I've also seen it like building upon itself in 6th, 7th, and 8th. When I have the privilege of being in a lot of different classrooms, so I have been in K, 2nd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th grade that are using these programs. And you know, in a week or a couple of weeks, I could go in and see a lesson that is then being like brought to the next level in the next grade. So for me, I think about like the standards, the Massachusetts standard ELA standards, and how they build upon each other from grade level to grade level. And this program is very explicit in doing that. So that's one of the wonderful things that I noticed about the program and how that will help our students develop knowledge and build upon their skills from grade to grade in a very aligned way. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
Michelle.
Hi. I wasn't sure if it was in person, so I just stayed home waiting to Zoom. So I apologize
No, that's okay.
to
I sent
Upton.
email to my phone and it must have got messed up.
That's okay. I just wanted to share out the group of educators that worked tirelessly on looking at different programs and what was going to be best for our students, starting at the early childhood level, going up to 8th grade, was incredible. And this program, because I'm an early childhood educator, I am always looking at what programs are going to offer our new students coming in at the pre-K and kindergarten level, that they're going to get those strong foundation skills for phonemic awareness, for understanding literature, beginning to learn how to write and what that means, and the whole process of taking your thoughts and putting them to paper. And I find that CKLA is really going to give us what we have been looking for, that all-in-one program. We're able to meet the needs of all the diverse learners that we have now, and be able to work together as the kids move up through each grade level, that we have that vertical alignment so that we can see how things are changing and growing as they move up, and then be able to collaboratively work amongst ourselves with each grade level as our students move through the district. So I'm really happy to get this going and try it out.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Hi, Cheryl. Thank you again.
Oh, super. Hi, Erica. So glad you could be with us.
No, I'm Erica Hahn, 4th grade Spanish immersion teacher at Clough. So I actually had the privilege of piloting the other program that we didn't choose, but also now being able to implement the Caminos program this remainder of the year. And what I thoroughly enjoyed about this program and what I found was that the Spanish text is a rich Spanish text that is at 4th grade level in Spanish. But additionally, what I like the most about it is that the text that I have, the material that I have, basically mirror my English counterparts in my team. And yeah, the text might not be the same, but the lessons are the same. So yes, we're teaching context clues, we're teaching theme and different types of poetry and different elements of poetry, but our texts are different, but the lessons are the same. So it's nice to be able to meet with my team, be able to talk to them about it, and be able to work together as a team.
Thank you.
I suppose since everyone's saying something, I may as well chime in. Brianna Zaleski, I'm their reading specialist at Clough. I also happen to be the Title I coordinator for the district. And so I work in a lot of different classrooms at Clough, but I also work closely with some of the tutors and the reading specialist at Memorial. And I just think overall, everyone's very excited about this program. It's going to provide a stronger base of those foundational literacy skills that we have been slowly working towards over the last few years, with implementing things like foundations. We're getting closer to what the students need, but this is really going to fill in some of the gaps. It's very comprehensive. As Michelle said, there's the phonemic awareness. There's more grammar implemented and embedded into the lessons. And in the younger grades, there were the two different strands, but what they're learning in the foundational skills strand carries over into the knowledge strand. So it's really just, I'm very excited to see over the next few years how this supports our students.
Thank you so much, Brianna. Thanks. And so the last thing that I wanted to share with you, or the second to last actually, is the cost. And so the cost to the district, which you'll hear more details about in a little bit, is broken down by school here. What we've decided to do is to recommend a 6-year program. It gives us the best value for our money. And it also provides us with the time to be able to get used to the program. We're only going to purchase the consumables for 1 year, however, and that's based on experiences where sometimes consumables aren't utilized well. And so we're going to kind of try all the consumables out and figure out exactly what we need. We believe this will save the district some money in the long run. And we've broken it down with financing so that the FY27 amount is $170,995.33. And the last thing I want to share with you is that we have an exciting program that we've organized that we'll be talking a lot about, where we're going to have a virtual community connection event from 6 to 7 on St. Patty's Day. We are going to go online. We're inviting everyone in the community. Everyone should wear green, and let's talk about reading. We're going to talk about the science of reading. We're going to share with families what that means, what it means for our educators and how that impacts their kids in the classroom, and also some of the things they can do at home to continue to develop and build literacy skills. So that's going to be a virtual event on March 17th from 6 to 7.
So go back 2 slides, please. So you said it's financed. Is the 170 how much hits next year's fiscal budget, or is that a finance number?
The 170 is 1/3 of the total, or a little bit more than 1/3 of the total cost, because it includes the consumables.
Well, it looks like it's 52%.
Right. So there is also shipping and handling involved in the consumables. So you've got probably, you're looking at the 35,000 and then the 6,000, that all has to be taken care of in that first year, along with 1/3 of each of the 6-year contract rates.
So if you fully use this to the max, is the 6-year cost really, the first row is the subscription cost.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand you're not going to use every consumable all the time, but if you did, you'd essentially have a $76,000 annual OpEx cost to support this literature, this curriculum.
If we did, yes, there would be a $76,000 cost. However, that includes shipping and handling, which I'm pretty confident we won't be paying. And it's probably about $40,000 of that cost, but I need to put it in the budget because we haven't purchased this yet. And it also is everything. So there will be some things I am confident that our teachers are going to be like, we're just going to use paper for this. We don't need a workbook, or we don't need like the printed copies of. And those are the types of things that I think ultimately when you do 6-year packages with consumables entirely, you end up paying for things over time that you don't need sometimes. And so that's the idea is, that consumable cost will come way down. It'll be 40,000 less, hopefully, because of the shipping.
So you said the shipping is 40,000, like, I guess a total of 76?
Yes.
So more than 50% of shipping?
I know.
Are these lead weighted materials?
Drive 4 18-wheeler across the country.
If you imagine, and I don't know, I haven't looked at these resources in particular for the size, but you think like when you're in the early elementary, could be like a book like this that has sort of the page. for
Guys, I
everything.
shipped a car across the country for
Right.
$1,200. Like, I will drive anywhere in the country
All right.
to get
Well,
this.
that's good. We just got
Well,
some savings.
and I don't think you'll need to,
Again,
Erin.
Eric, a CD.
I don't think you'll need to. You know, and we've already been talking with folks, but because we haven't actually purchased it, it felt responsible to include it is all. Some of the things that are heavy, just so that you know, are like the teacher kits too. So it'll be the first year where we're like purchasing all of the, it's not just consumables, it's like all of the resources that the teachers have. And those come in big boxes and stuff. Do I think $40,000 is a value for the shipping? No. And I think we can reduce or eliminate it.
In the same essence of being in budget season, I know we kind of piloted 2 and then came up with this. Did you guys factor in cost between the 2 that you piloted? And, you know, obviously if you get like a 4.9 and a 4.8, but one costs 2x.
That's right.
So did you factor in, but in
We
cost?
did. The other resource that we piloted was actually more expensive than this in the short run. So, and it's because there are a whole bunch of trade books that come with it that was part of this model for literacy. So not only did we not like it as much, but in the short run, it would have been more expensive. If the books like lasted, that it's possible that in the long run, meaning like 7 or 8 years, you know, down the road, it could have ended up being more of a value, but in the short run, it was more expensive.
I don't know, guys. I think this gets hard to approve without shaking them down. Like, you know, when I bring something for approval at work, I've already gotten the best possible price. I don't, it doesn't matter how many pieces of paper there is. There's not $2,000 of shipping costs if you're bringing it from San Diego. I don't know. I think you gotta go beat them up. This is almost embarrassing. Like the shipping cost was more than the cost of the materials. That's my opinion.
Well, I think there's something to that. That's like, I mean, there are resources and things that you can buy that have unfair costs that you would go after that vendor immediately. You know, just based on these numbers alone, you could just say this is ridiculous unless you've got real justification. So I think that's justified. What kind of timeline do we have here? This is obviously, we're trying to make this part of the budget.
So this is factored in as, and we're hoping that, you know, as we, you know, work with them to reduce this, that will come right off. Right. So I think that's the one wild card right now that we didn't get an okay with them to remove that immediately.
But that's not something you'll likely have a conversation with us about until we're committed to purchasing the product, is what I'm understanding you saying.
Yeah. It's usually you have the flexibility of talking to the salesperson, getting an agreement like that before you try to commit to a product. That's a little bit, I don't know, it feels like we're being told and sold a bill of goods.
Kind of on the vendor front, like not saying that they are, but they could watch this. If we approve this and they say, we know your school committee approved that number. So, right, like.
Well, if we say we're not going to approve this until we get a lower price for shipping, and that gives you leverage in a conversation. The school committee says that to you. You were a selected resource, but there's a cost here that cannot be explained. You got to explain it. You got to explain the cost.
Sure.
Just trying to give you more ammunition.
Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the budget as submitted? there any further discussion before a motion? If there's no motion on the table, then we'll move on to the next item.
Thank you.
I just want to say one thing. Thank you to the team. I know you guys did a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've got a great product here, and it sounds like this will eventually work. Let's just go shake them down. Let's get the
Yeah.
best cost, and then come back and we'll be, support.
Sounds good.
Sincerely, it breaks your heart because I mean, those people, professionals that I really respect, and I'm very, very glad that they gave us their opinions and spent so much time doing this. But at the same time, let's get the best price for what.
Yep, and we will, and we'll be back.
Great. Thank you.
And Cheryl.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
We're gonna lose our audience now. Moving on to finance and operations report. Jay.
Working on it. That whole shoveling thing, there's a senior exemption for that, right? Just want to make sure.
I was talking to my brother-in-law who's a doctor, and he said the number of people who come in with heart attacks after shoveling is.
Oh, exactly. I can feel it now. All right, I think we're starting with capital. So we had our meeting Monday for the capital project. Oh, I'll wait till Sam gets it up on there. We did already push back, by the way, so you know, on the price of the curriculum itself. And I use the analogy that it's like buying a car. They throw out a price and then they got to go talk to their manager. What they said was, oh, we don't do that here. That doesn't mean that they don't do it here, but I've had some pretty outrageous shipping costs on very small piano items that $40 to ship something that used to cost $7. So, but I expect the answer will be that's what UPS charges us, but we'll push. All right, projects. General reno means the general renovation project. So as you know, we've got 3 projects: the facilities, which is considered the general renovations, the fields, and what's the other one? The roof.
The roof and HVAC.
I've lost track of them
Yeah,
all.
and a long too.
All right, so we met Monday, 85% documents are done, have been sent out. They're ready to go out to bid probably mid-March. We got some cost estimates back, which they're still reviewing. The budget so far on the general renovation project looked pretty good. It looked like we were under budget on that project. And there were a couple of things in there that I thought were on the higher end for where I think we're going to end up paying. So I think we're in good shape budget-wise there. But those things should be ready to go out probably mid to end of March. The geotech. So the interesting point, we have to do some test pits on the field area. And I don't know if anybody's been at the field and looked out, but if you look out on the far end of the football field out into the woods, there's an old rusted Cadillac out in the woods. It's been there since like the school was built. Don't know whose it is.
It's a fun fact that you don't know until you go out.
Fun fact, right?
Yeah.
My vision is we put it on top of the concession stand and make it like a 50s thing, but nobody seems to like that idea. Anyway, we have to get out there to do some of these test pits. The plan was to do it next week. Obviously, the snow has put a little bit of a hindrance in that, and that I don't know how we're going to get an excavator out into the woods through all the trees and the brush to dig holes. So that's kind of on hold now. Unfortunately, we do need those test pits before we can go to conservation, because you have to come with a full plan with all the information that you need. We're hoping we can get them done maybe, mid-March, end of March, if we get some decent snow melt. But right now, that's kind of on hold until we get that sort of organized. We do have them where they're located. I sent it to Ken. Ken was of the same opinion. We're not getting out there next week, but maybe we can get out there in a couple of weeks. So we're still working with conservation and with the ZBA as far as setbacks for all the schematic designs. I believe we're going to ZBA mid-March, like March 16th, something like that. We need setbacks for the bleachers, the concession stand, the light stanchions. All of them are within the 50-foot setback rule. So that will be happening in the middle of March. I think we're going to try to go to conservation, kind of like assuming the test results come out the way we expect them to, do we get a tentative approval? And I think they might be able to work that out, but I think that still is up in the air. As far as the estimates, we got the generator estimate did come back in. It's pretty close to what we estimated in the initial cost estimates when we put the project together. Again, very expensive in my opinion, but apparently that's what generators cost for this size. I want to say it's in the above $700,000. That's the generator, the installation, all the other stuff involved with it. They're still going to vet that before they actually come back to us and say this is where it's at. But that was part of the general renovation project, so we're still in good shape budget-wise there. The schematic designs for the fields are with the estimators. They should be due back this week or probably next week. I'm anticipating there's probably a little bit of a delay just because of snow delays. Vertex is working on their budget. Even Associates is looking at curbing at the schools. We're trying to decide what we include in the base bid and what we put as alternates. When they did the design, they put it into 3 tiers. One of the stuff we have to do. Tier 2 and 3 are, if we have money, we might do other things. I think tier 1 is going to be in the base bid. Tier 2 and 3, we had a discussion about exactly how we would split that out, but it'll be an add alternate on the contract. Same thing with the auditorium at Nipmuc. The question is whether we replace the seats in the upper balconies. The seats up there are actually in pretty good shape. But if the budget allows for it, we probably prefer to put in new seats so that they all match and they're all the same. Carpeting in the auditorium at NISCO was not really included in the original plan. I think we would like to try to do that. And again, it looks like it's within budget. So I think we can probably pull that off. I mean, that carpet was put in 1996. And then Eric played on it a lot. So it's probably a mess now. So that's kind of where we're at with that. We're identifying rooms for carpets that are going to be done in the summer, flooring in the summer, how we're going to stage it all. And we need to get a legal opinion from our lawyers about the type of contract we use. They sent us some information, do you want to use the A101? They had a bunch of different things, which quite honestly, I don't know that much about. I kind of was hoping Vertex would just say, this is what we recommend. Apparently they don't do that. We have to go to our lawyers and have them tell us what they're going to recommend. So that's going to get done in the next week. So we should have that settled out. On the roof and the HVAC, the bids, I don't know if we talked about this, the bids for the HVAC equipment got delayed by 2 weeks. It was supposed to be due back, I think 2 weeks ago. The process is they get posted on the central register and then they go through a thing called bid docs. Bid docs is supposed to coordinate it all so that the central register just says the documents that you need to see are available on bid docs. Bid docs never posted them. Therefore, we had to repost, re-advertise the whole thing, put it out again. And they should be back, I think next week is when they're planning. Is it next week or the week after? I forget now, but it delayed it a week or two, which is not great. Not much we can do about that. Mechanical engineers are working. Everybody's still working on all this stuff. The bids will go out probably, I would say, end of March, early April for the rest of the roof and everything else. I think they did assign a commissioning agent. I think this was from the last meeting.
Everyone said it had the update,
Right.
they didn't send the notes, so we just kept this.
But I do think one has been assigned. I don't know where we're at as far as getting that information, but MSBA is a little behind a little bit in what they're doing. I think they took on a lot of projects and don't have the personnel to handle everything. And there's lots of questions back and forth that seem to be coming from them. But that's where we are with the roof project. So that's a brief update of the projects. I mean, I think the bottom line that I think we've said it multiple times, a lot of things are happening behind the scenes. It's not a lot of visible stuff happening, but there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes.
The bid doc date was March 4th.
It was March 4th that the bids will be due back. Okay. So that's next week.
And Ari, the generator, anything from National Grid on
the electrical engineers was going to write a sort of strongly worded letter, hey, this is really not a good situation. Whether that'll help or not, I don't know.
He wasn't in the meeting on Monday,
Yeah.
so it came up at the meeting that we needed to follow up to see if he could get that letter done. So-
I haven't talked to him
Yeah.
in the last week or so about that particularly. The good side of that is that, again, the general renovation project is tentatively under budget. And one of the things that was in that budget was about $250,000 for the switchgear. We don't have to do that now. We should free up some money. The generator or the transformer was like $54,000. So as much as it irritates me that they might make us pay for it, we probably need to upgrade that.
not to go down the rabbit hole, but.
Oh, you're going to go down.
Oh, I know. Just very quickly, do we know who paid to install the transformers years and years ago? Is there any way we can point the finger and say, you could be liable?
Well, they put them in 1960, so that's what existed for transformers back then. So I'm sure there were a lot of those types of transformers everywhere.
But
I mean, offline, I will tell you, I did have a way to get them replaced for free, but we're not going to talk about that. But I had some ideas, but I sometimes have ideas, but then again, we filter them down.
Yeah.
And then at
Yes.
least we talk about it.
Right.
Make better decisions.
I think, yeah.
Ideas of a brainstorm.
Yeah, I mean, ideas are always there. There's always ways, but.
Let's move on. Any
Yeah.
other questions?
Any questions for Jay on capital projects?
I mean, there's a lot. These meetings are long and the Monday meetings there's a lot going on with all the projects, but.
We try to keep it to an hour, and they're usually an hour and a half to 2 hours.
With new information and updates every week too, you know, it's not just the same on these projects. There's a lot happening. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I know this is like another full-time job. Full-time jobs.
And Sean?
Okay. Done now?
Will you stay? We're gonna pass over doing a facilities budget presentation tonight, so we can just focus fully on the budget presentation, because it's not short, but it's full of very important information. So we'll do that. And we could pull that up. Great, what you did. Awesome. All right. This is our first pass of the budget. We've been, just for those who may or may not have been watching our past meetings, we've been giving district budget updates at the last few meetings since December, in addition to the departmental budgets. Every day, something is changing within this process, and we have been working diligently all over break and through this weekend and through these last 2 snow days to bring you what we have today. And we know as of tomorrow, after feedback and more information, it'll change tomorrow and the next day too, as we get into multi-part, and we'll continue to add and refine, and just want to let you know. I want to thank Jay and Cheryl for all of their work in contributing to this. So for goals tonight, we're going to do a quick overview of our budget development for this year. It looks some elements you've been here for a while, so you've seen our process, but some are the same processes, but this year's budget approach is different from previous years. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about our priorities and why we're coming forward with what we're coming forward, the rationale for the type of funding requests, needs-based requests we're coming forward with. And we'll also spend a lot of time around the details related to costs versus revenue and why our costs are surpassing revenue this year and by how much. Every year we refine our budget principles. What remains in the forefront is always centered on student-centered decision-making. We want our outcomes to align with our resources. We want to support our students academically, social, emotionally, behaviorally, all of the needs of all of our learners. When we make decisions that are hard, we're always keeping this on the table as we're doing so and advocating for what we need for our students. This is a needs-based fiscal foundation that we're working off of. We want to make sure we're sustaining our essential services, but also ensuring that we're complying with state and federal mandates and addressing different demographic shifts of our student population over time. Our goal is to be as transparent. I know you know this, so some of this isn't for you, it's for anyone watching, but our goal is to be as transparent as possible with the budget through all of these budget presentations. And we will follow up with, FAQs and further details and add that to the website and have additional meetings. But it is our goal to make sure that we have clear data-driven communications, that we're talking about our fiscal priorities and our resource allocation, and always keeping in mind sustainability as much as we're able to have sustainability in the kind of context that we're in. Next slide. Thank you. Our budget is always, and everything we do is always grounded in our strategic plan. It's a reason why it's the beginning of all our presentations. It's a reminder of what we do. This year, student performance, we added that in because we need to close some gaps. You will see that this budget represents a lot of focus in the student performance area and the needs that we have there. Our goals, these goals were the same as last year. We're still focusing in our strategic plan along the high quality curriculum instruction. You just heard Cheryl talking about the needs of our high quality resources that will impact our students K through 8. We are going to talk about our needs in multi-tiered systems of support and some staffing that will enable our students to get everything that they need. And when we talk about deeper learning, every other meeting and authentic learning, we're talking about having our students be college and career ready to be future ready. And that doesn't just start at the high school, it's building this across the whole district, and all we're doing So right now, this is more for the community, but because I know you're aware of this, but we are at a critical juncture in our budget where the communities will need to decide which path they want to go on. We have been, over the last 11 years, 11 or 12 years, building this path to the right. I can't tell you enough how amazing our district is right now, how amazing our culture is now. The staffing is incredible. The outcomes are improving. We are in such an amazing, incredible, powerful place for our students. Would you agree? Yes, good, facts, yeah. All right. If we are unable to have the funding to support what we're putting forward in this budget, it's going to start to lead us down the other path of reduction services, close to what we had to witness, over a decade ago. And I have to share it this way with the public because this is kind of this point where we're at, and then we need to make lots of hard decisions. You need to make lots of hard decisions about, what this final budget is going to look like when we go forward to certify. As a reminder, the last time we were at this juncture was 11 years ago. At that time, the previous superintendent, Dr. Bruschek, he stood in front of everyone and communicated that typically you would need another operational override of additional funds about another 5 years or so. We have been able to sustain through using different really strong financial management, the competitive grants that we go after all the time, some grants that came around, right after COVID as well. And also we've been reducing and reallocating, which I have us point out to you in all the presentations throughout these years to have level service budget as much as we've been able to, and have been able to go 6 years beyond that point. So when I came on board as superintendent, we were at that, we thought the new critical juncture, but we were able to go 5 to 6 more years of the prosper from Joe to me. And so now we are here at 11 years later. And that I would say as a headline, I'd like to highlight like what are some key points in my presentation is it's not that we're coming forward with these kind of asks every year. We're not. We've been going as long as we can and doing a really good job with that. In regard to transparency, this was a slide in last year's presentation where I talked about implications for the next year, that we were going deeper into reserves to get us through this one last year. But we stated that we wouldn't be able to do it in the next fiscal year, which is the one we're in right now. We used more of a 240 grant, which we aren't able to use as much of that this year. We continue to maintain level services, but it diminishes, the level of maintenance just diminishes each year with the continued reductions that we've had to put in. And just in last year's, we talked about putting off technology investment. I also had the snowplow slide last year too of everything, the unmet needs that we keep pushing down, and technology as well. For the last 3 years, I've been talking, people say, oh yeah, remember the picture at the end of your slide, a guy looking over a cliff. No, this isn't the same exact slide, but we were looking over that cliff, or some people call it that fiscal cliff, or the gap that's widening between revenue and expenditures. And it's hard to have sustainability. We need to have an increase in local revenue. So some of the things were stated, reductions I've been talking about, fixed costs increasing, use of one-time funds, etc. Can you go to the next slide, please? So our path to the future right now, beyond last year and heading into the future is kind of building that bridge fiscally for us and making sure we're able to continue on the path and not fall over that cliff. So this is my image. Jay's already sometimes talked about the bungee cord kind of going up and down, but I'm going with the bridge for us. So we're going to head into the budget development process. Again, it's a huge cycle. We're towards the end of our review, refine, and present as we head into the budget hearing in a couple of weeks. Next slide, thank you. I always give a timeline. I just presented a little bit differently this year to show our budget presentations that we've had over time. And I will update this as we have additional presentations that come in here. So we're able to have this on the website just to clarify for people the amount of opportunities that we try to provide for them to learn about the budget. In this period of when kind of this very concentrated period of December to March, I call it kind of the budget refinement steps that we're going through. And that's when I say one day, like our last Tuesday looked different than the Wednesday, then something changed in the Thursday, and then we're double checking numbers here. And then we find more state numbers, you know, Jay is in the weeds of all the finer details and numbers, but we are going back on contracts and getting better quotes. We are trying to think of all the things that we did even the last week. We've made lots of reductions in line items to be closer to like level funded in some areas and try to make as many as we can. Also, always keeping in mind the students that are in the forefront of our decision making. We again are reviewing class sizes and making sure there aren't changes from what we had just a couple weeks ago. So if you go on to the next slide, I'll start to talk about a few of the things. I know this always comes up. I've had this slide in my presentation the last number of years. We don't have a school committee policy. Some districts do that say what your class size is. And I don't recommend necessarily that we do because you're gonna, you get stuck in there. But our best practice and range is that in K-1, the max preferred would be about 20, 2 to 3, 22, and 4 to 8 would be in about 24. At the high school, because it's student selected and based, you could have an AP class that's 9 students. You could have an Algebra 1 class that's closer to 29. It does fluctuate, but we do look at those class sizes. And we've made because of declining enrollment at the high school last few years, we've made a lot of reductions and that have been impactful, but have helped in other areas in the budget. In looking at K-8, where it's a little bit more stable for doing the class size averages. This isn't too far off from what we had last year and are pretty solid numbers. Just to explain what it is in case it's not clear, like the number on the left, let's say under memorial and kindergarten, 18 is the average for the, English classes, and then 24 is how many is in the SI class. You'll notice with SI, we try to start as high as we can. That's reasonable in kindergarten because usually there'll be some that will go out of SI like in the next couple of years, a couple or so. But in other areas, it may be a little bit lower. We try to have it be at 15 as the max to run it. And sometimes people do, leave or sometimes they move out of our town. So that's happened. Just so you know, we didn't start with 12. Like in that class, that's 12. It started higher, but you can see that varies. And this goes pretty stable across. These are core classes. You do have a much wider range when we get into the specialist and elective classes, some that are really large and some that are smaller based off of the time periods that they're offered. The one position that's been put in the budget and advocated for was the grade 3 for fluff next year. Because it's an average of 24 to 25. So it's been approaching and they tend to keep getting more students in there. And that was requested. So I want to take a little bit of time to talk about, we have various approaches to the budget. In the last couple of years, if I were to put an arrow, we were at the level service budget. And a couple years ago, we did get to add in a couple like strategic positions and needs-based positions, et cetera. And it's not just about positions, but sometimes it's resources as well. And earlier, a couple of months ago, I'm like, it seems like based off of revenue, we're teetering on that reduced service for if we're looking at it from a revenue side. But from the expenditure side, obviously, as the superintendent, I'm going to always keep advocating for us to get to that strategic level, competitive level for our students. I also know to be fiscally responsible that you can't always get there. We don't have the funding to get there. So we have to have targeted investments over time and have a long-term plan, which is why when people present their budgets, I often ask them to say, what do you need this year? What do you think you need in the future? And then we try to plan that out. We make adjustments as we go. It's when I explained this at the superintendent advisory group, said it's when some people say, not that they're saying this recently, but I'll give an example. Why don't we have Mandarin at the high school? Like there are plenty of Westboro, other places that have Mandarin, right? Or other types of, world languages. That would fall in the strategic competitive budget area. It would be, I looked back at our strategic plan from 10 years ago or like 8 years ago, the previous one. And we were going to add in world language at the elementary. That falls in the strategic and competitive budget. That's something that we haven't been able to get to, but doesn't mean we don't want it. Doesn't mean I don't try to advocate for these things, but just to be clear on what that level could be. When we have needs-based, we talk a lot about this, and we're coming forward actually with the needs-based budget request for you tonight. And so that's at the level we put in more of the resources to support our students, especially in special education, especially in the area of supporting our student performance goal. Level service budget is where we kind of would start. We need to maintain class sizes and programs and services so we're not cutting. And a reduced service budget is when you don't have enough funding, you're making cuts to existing services. And reduced service could be just a small reduced service budget, or it could be really significant. And because we have such a large gap that we anticipate between what the towns have and their local revenue and what our needs are, which we're about to talk to, that reduced service, if we don't have the funding, would be very significant. It wouldn't be small, and need to be clear on that. Next slide. So if we break it down, and this doesn't encompass everything, but it gives you just a quick, I guess, snapshot of what it could be. We're coming forward with a needs-based budget, which is, the second one in there. If we went with that strategic budget, it would be everything that was asked for. And some of these investments in technology refresh, it would be those positions that we know can really make us stronger and help support teaching and learning better. And that's what it's strategic. We have the needs-based budget. The level service budget would have just the minimum of the grade 3 teacher and middle school special educator. In order to do that, we would need to make some reductions and reallocate some positions in order to have those. And it would be, and we still have a lot of level funding, but more level funding and additional line item reductions and reduction in areas like student activity stipends as well. Reduced service budget would have significant cuts across every staffing unit, so everyone. It would lead to high class sizes. It would lead to reductions in electives, core academic and extracurricular programs, reductions in SI offerings and ability to continue that program at the state that it is, and plus more. So we are going to talk about the needs-based budget as we move forward and lead with expenditures. Yes, I'll pause.
Yeah, on the budget options.
Yep.
Like, it would be nice to see quantify, what does a strategic budget look like? What is the needs-based budget? Like, what is that number? What's the difference in the gap? And I wouldn't hesitate define what high class sizes look like in a reduced budget. Are we talking, +2? Are we talking +10? And really quantify so people understand what that looks like.
We on 2 note, we almost did put the numbers
Yeah.
in here. I told them to do that. Like, we got to get the numbers in here. We do have kind of those general numbers. We can get that too. I figured we could, I could get it to this week. On the reduced service budget, once we know what number we're going forward with, then the next step phase is we'll be identifying what those actual impacts are for class sizes, but it will be significant and we'll be clear on it, but it will take some time in order to do that, because our first goal in a reduced service budget is to not cut any positions, right? We know that would have to happen in order to have that balanced budget, but it would be what are every other nook and cranny of not offering other things that wouldn't impact, and then we get to that. So, but we will absolutely have that. All right, keep going. All right, turn it to you.
Okay. So we show this chart every year. The state has some function codes that we report everything under, and this is how the percentages of our budget, as we're intending to move forward at this point, how they break out. Again, you'll see the biggest chunk are instruction and benefits and fixed charges. That's, about 73% on this, based on these function codes. Everything else is quite a bit less. Does everybody know what the function codes are? Everybody is good at it. You guys do. You probably heard me talk about this a million times, so I won't go into a lot of detail. That's how it breaks out there. If we break it out a little bit differently, and I think we've talked about this before, our largest expense is the people that work here. So if you put salaries and employee benefits, now employee benefits includes more than just health insurance, but also Medicare tax and Worcester retirement and workers' comp and all the other things that are involved in employees. It's about almost 77.5% of our budget is going to the people. Pretty much that's where it should be, because without the people, the school doesn't really do much. But that's how it breaks out. As you can see, out of district is around 6.5%, transportation's around 8%, but the biggest chunk is going to be employees and the benefits related to those employees. On the expenditure side, key cost drivers, our biggest one this year is health insurance. I think we've talked about this pretty much ad nauseum. In the budget, it's going to show at almost a 37% increase. Our premium rates are going up 25%, but we under budgeted this year. We had a bunch of people sign up for health insurance that we didn't anticipate, so our costs are going to exceed our budget this year, but budget number to budget number, it's going to reflect about 36.8%. I'll talk a little bit more about health insurance in a second, but that's our biggest driver right now, and it is the biggest driver for just about every district and every company everywhere. Salaries is another driver, a little over $1.5 million. That's cost of living, steps and lanes. All those have been factored in. Longevity's been factored in there, which we didn't list there. They're up about $1.5 million. Special education, specifically, we're talking about out-of-district tuitions are up. Now that includes using circuit breaker. So circuit breaker is not in the operational budget. It's we take charges from the operational budget and charges to the circuit breaker revolving account. That's how DESE wants it to be done. But I'm including that as a cost because we've got a substantial amount of circuit breaker we're going to apply, or we have to apply in FY27. The new positions that we're going to keep in the budget are about $450,000. The curriculum that Cheryl talked about, it's an increase of about $160,000. Now that's based on financing it or splitting it over 3 payments as opposed to potentially spreading it out over 6 payments. We're still looking at that option. I'm not thrilled with a 7.5% interest rate, but it may turn out that budget-wise, we might still have to do that just to reduce that number a little bit, and we'll still refine the quotes that Cheryl's gotten so far and see if we can get them to come down. Utilities, building operations, it's an increase. The majority of that is utilities, heating oil, electricity, natural gas. All 3 of those things are going up just like it is for everybody else. We still pay considerably less than the average homeowner does. But when you go from $1.67 a gallon to $2 and say 50 cents a gallon, that's an increase. The building operations side is building maintenance, but not related to the capital project. So I'm talking about things like elevator inspections and boiler cleanings and all the various things that we have to do on a regular basis in the buildings. The cost of that is going up. And that's the main drivers there. Worcester Retirement is the retirement system for everybody that's not an MTRS. So that would be our custodians, admin assistants, paraprofessionals, anybody that works in the daycare center before and after school, anybody that works for the district that isn't part of a job that requires a DESI license is in Worcester Retirement. Our assessment for that is going up $130,000. Transportation, and that includes special ed and regular ed, transportation is up about $128,000. And athletics, we probably don't even need to list it at this point, but there is going to be a slight increase to athletics just to cover transportation for them to get to other fields because our fields won't be playable. But the big cost drivers are the top two, really, maybe even the top three, I guess, if you look at all three of them. And I think the one thing that we want to emphasize tonight is the limits the towns have in funding, in raising revenue on a town level that will help fund the school district is not keeping pace with the cost of running a public school district. They just don't match anymore. And the levy limits and the controls on that just are not adequate anymore to support. And I think towns are finding the same problem on the town level. It's not just us, but supporting the school district, it's a difficult thing to do. Again, this is just our two main drivers, health insurance and salaries. Here we have the note explaining the health insurance, why it looks so much higher than the premium increase is going to be, but it's still a substantial increase. And salaries, they are what they are. I mean, we have contracts we've signed, so that's kind of where those numbers are.
So for the needs-based budget, just as a reminder of our investments in student support, like with the staffing, so to address class sizes, it's that grade 3 position, special ed teachers at MISCO and Nipmuc, which Frank had talked about to provide courses, especially design instruction. We had the school psychologist to meet the growing needs of all of the caseloads of our school psychologists, and then honestly being able to have the ability to do more than just evaluations to benefit our students at the building level. And we have a speech language pathologist that's contracted that we'd be, it's not too much of an addition. It's kind of swapping from contracted into the budget as a part-time or related service provider. So those are the additional positions that are in there and how much it costs. Just to emphasize, they're not luxuries. They directly impact student support. They maintain effective class sizes, support mental health, and ensure compliance.
So the curriculum we've talked about, this page here really refers to 4 line items in our budget. That's textbook and supplies for each building. It does not count all the individual departments, that need paper or whatever, markers, whatever it is. This is just curriculum resources. In the budget, I tend to round these numbers up. So if I see 71,770, I put 72,000 in the budget. So those numbers are slightly higher in the budget all the way through. They probably add up to a total of an extra $1,000. So that's all those textbook lines. It's what amounts to the 256,000. There are other items besides those things you see listed here in those accounts, books for ELA, novels that they have novels that have worn out that they have to buy another 20 or 30 copies of novels. All those would be in that textbook accounts, those textbook accounts as well. Special education out of district tuition, you can see there's a fairly large jump we're looking at for 27. We've got another 6 additional students that we anticipate are going to be placed out of district next year. Some of them are in evaluations currently. Those numbers are going up. We do have the tuitions for private schools, the collaborative schools. There is no state published list of what those tuitions are, but we've put about a 4% increase to what we're currently paying now because that's what the OSD is giving the private schools. My guess is the collaboratives. Apparently the way it works is they have their own boards. They set their tuitions. They're not they're not vetted through DESI or anything like that. They just set their tuitions. We've got several students at those. I mean, they're actually less expensive than the private schools. That also includes transportation and circuit breaker expenditures as well. So special ed is becoming a driver a little bit in out of district placements. Here it kind of breaks out the facilities. So here's your facilities update budget. We'll do a little better job of that for something in the future so that you have some more specifics. But these are what's going up on the facilities side.
Can I jump in? If there's something specific to
Yeah.
building operations utilities that you're looking for us to present on, since we haven't done it yet, you can let us know and we'll just make sure. We want to be as transparent about, what specific costs are going up, so people who might not understand what this means, know what it means. So you can just give us input on that, and we'll make sure that we get that when we present. Likely, I would say we might do that the meeting after the budget hearing. Unless, we get feedback and we can try to work it into the budget hearing.
What I can tell you though is the entire maintenance budget, with the exception of salaries that are contractual, has been level funded for at least the last 10 years. We haven't really increased anything there. I think the only thing we added in, maybe, I think we're in the last year in FY27, is the payments on the big John Deere machines that we replaced, the ones that were bought when the building was built in 1996, that had served their purpose. So those will come off the books after 27, so that will be a positive. Total expenditures as it stands right now, it's about a $5.5 million increase. It's a 13%, 13.02%. You'll see that reductions identified. That's a lesser number than what you had seen previously. That's because we put back in a couple of the positions that we originally thought we maybe would try to take out, is to do a level service budget. I think we came to the reality probably about 10 days ago that a level service budget was going to, and it actually require reductions and also require additional funds on top of it, which doesn't make sense to have to cut staff and cut positions, cut services, and at the same time try to ask for more money on top of that. It doesn't seem to be a logical approach. Health insurance.
So before we get into that topic, you mentioned that there are things that will come off of the 2027 budget.
2028 budget.
Okay, there are one-time charges.
So we financed the John Deere machines over 5 years. It's like $38,000 a year split between the 4 buildings. Next FY27 is the last year of those payments. Then they're paid off.
All right. So are there any other, I'm getting the feeling like what we're talking about here is a bubble on so many different fronts. There's an inflationary bubble. There's health insurance costs running up. There's various one-time or double charges, let's call them that. I don't know how to characterize that.
That's a more technical term, but we'll use it.
So the idea is, could we project into 2029 essentially a budget that would increase by X amount? So in other words, can we project from next year, can we project forward and see how the budget will be then? Are we going to require another request for a large budget increase?
Right, so specifically, the only thing I know of that will be coming off the books is going to be the John Deere machines. Like other things, like we have financing options for some of our switches and a lot of our technology stuff. Typically, at the end of those leases, that equipment needs to be replaced. Maybe we skate a year or two. If you remember correctly, last year, the lease on all of our desktops was done. We used those funds to replace all the smart boards throughout the district. So it got rolled into something else. It didn't go away.
I'm just trying to think because
I don't think there's a lot coming off the books.
It's been miraculous that we've lasted for 10 years on the budget increases that we've had.
Yeah, well.
So now we had sort of a period of time where the governments were helping us through a period that was desperate for all Americans, right? But we're in a special situation this year, right? I'm characterizing that myself. I'm looking at this going, this is special.
This is a perfect storm. Yeah.
This is a perfect storm that has increased. The rate of increase is happening faster now.
Right.
So, and this has been reflected over the past couple of years. It hasn't just been this year. So if there's any way we can characterize this so that the town is prepared to understand that we keep the same level of quality in education, and we're going to experience greater than 2.5% budget increases pretty consistently from now on.
Right. So the two things that I can think of that are really difficult to prevent or predict. One is health insurance, because health insurance is based on claims, and I can't tell you who's going to get sick next year and what the level of those illnesses could cost as far as the insurance side. So it's really difficult to predict that piece. The other piece that is really hard to predict is just in my head, and where did it go?
Well, special ed has to be.
Special, yeah, I was gonna say out of district tuition, that's it.
However,
Because
You know,
again,
you could have a couple of students, a family move in and, or
Yeah.
needs that change, you
So-
know, over a
But
year.
I remember
Some you can predict, but some you can't.
that was
And it's
like,
big swings.
special ed seems like it's around 20% cost of education. And it was 24% when Joe was here. I remember that. So it's actually special ed.
so our
I
numbers
might
have,
be wrong, but I think.
our
it's coming
placements
down.
have come down, but they're starting to inch back up.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, one of the things that I've had this discussion outside of this type of forum, people don't always understand, like, why does the school district need a psychologist, right? And, you know, why would you need a psychologist at a school district? That's a medical thing. Well, it's not, because there are needs that need to be addressed at a school level that are not getting addressed anywhere else. They're not, you know, some of these things probably should be health insurance things, but they're not. They seem to fall on the burden on the school district for, you know, out of district placements, for a lot of various things. So it's, those are the two things that are really hard to predict, I think. The rest of it, you know, can I predict utilities? I can probably come pretty close on that. Can I predict curriculum? Yes, we can project out what, you know, we're gonna have 6 years with this.
So I think what I'm trying to get an understanding of how to effectively communicate this to the public. Because this is difficult to understand, especially when it hits your pocketbook, it's gonna be emotional.
Right.
So we've got to come up with a way to characterize this that people will understand what the impact is going to be in the future. Because, you know, we may survive this. The following year, it's going to be more difficult to survive. And eventually it's going to get to the point where nobody wants to do that. So we've either got to show some really dramatic productivity increases and efficiency increases, or we've got to start sucking more of the town's revenue.
It goes back to what I said at the very beginning. The cost of running a school district or even running town government is exceeding the pace of how they can raise revenue within the levy.
That's a problem.
And that's a problem. That's not a problem that we can fix, though. That's
No,
a-
I
that's a
understand.
state
That's
level
something
problem.
that somebody has to understand. But
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? We can't just keep on presenting budgets with our, you know.
No, we've done
needs
fairly
based
good over
approach
the last
and
few
have
years.
everyone understand
Right.
that.
We've done fairly good over the last few years with having modest budgets, that we really allocated things, didn't have to go back to the towns for additional funds. We've done fairly well with that for 11 years now. That was a good run, but I think that run is done.
So for,
Maybe if we, sorry,
Yeah, go
Jen, I mean, if we can continue,
Yeah.
like we'll talk about health insurance, which I think it's important for you to hear because our goal is to be clear on what that's the biggest driver and what that is, you know, so you can give us feedback after. And then we'll talk about revenue and see if what we show for revenue, if it helps tell the story to explain to the community where revenue comes from and why we are where we're at.
But even then, if there's no question about health insurance being a huge debt in this whole picture. So if we took that off and made it a more reasonable increase, like, 7 to 9%, something like that. That's not even reasonable, but look what I'm
Well,
saying.
That's what
instead of a
it
said.
$2 million
But that's what it
increase,
said.
if it was only $500,000, that would help us immensely.
It would, but it would still put us over the limit that we could get from the towns at this point.
Potentially, but we might be able to do, you know, we haven't done that analysis. Could we then make the budget managed by making other reductions and reallocations? Who knows, maybe. I can't tell you
That's
that
what we've tried
because,
doing, but we've gone deeper into reserves to do that.
I do want to keep moving on, but I noticed the next slide we can go on to here, which is health insurance. And I see GLP-1s included. So is that included in the 2027 health plan? Is GLP-1s being offered?
so there was a discussion today. It is a public meeting, so I guess I can talk about it. We haven't talked about it with staff at all. The Strategic Health Board voted today to eliminate the use of GLP-1s for weight loss only, which is what every insurance company is doing everywhere. Will that reduce our premiums? I'm not 100% sure because again, our premiums have to cover our claims. We ran a deficit in FY25, so we owe them money for 25. We're running a deficit in FY26, so we're going to owe money in 26. We can't continue to run deficits and expect somebody else to be paying our bills. So our premiums have to cover our claims and the previous deficits as well.
So to Sean's point, the health insurance increase is immense this year. it will not be, hopefully, unless claims go up, as dramatic next year, but it could still be
It
substantial.
could. We have several very high claims right now. We do have stop loss coverage that covers the claims above 175,000. We have at least 6 that have hit that cap. We've just had some really high claims. I happened to have a discussion with the superintendent across the street last week, who told me that they have had very low claims. That's great for them, but not great for us. Doesn't help us. And it's really a hit or miss thing. So when you look at this, this information was put together by the actuarials for the GIC. 73% of organizations are facing pressure and 51% are exceeding their budgets. We're in the 51%. The cost of healthcare is out of control. It's a national issue. It's not a local issue, and there's not a lot we can do except pay the claims. That's one of the things about being in a self-funded plan is you pay the claims. Basically, quite honestly, if you're in a fully insured plan, you're paying the claims anyway. It's not like the insurance companies are not losing money off of anybody. That's what's important to know.
The cost of organizations that went over budget exceeded their plans. So they're saying budget overrun on health insurance, but our, that's not us at all. That's way, way above that.
Right. The market trend is around 20%. We're at 25% right now. That was with no plan design changes. Whether we adjust that 25% down a little bit, I really need to look at the numbers to see. I mean, this discussion just happened today, so I really haven't had a chance to get into it with our actuarials about where we land. We did reach out to Blue Cross Blue Shield and Mass Brigham Health, who have said no. Harvard Pilgrim told us it would be a 38% increase, or 46 if we included GLP-1s, but they're eliminating GLP-1s for weight loss as well for all of their plans. The one thing you have to be careful with is you see for us 25%, and I remember at a budget subcommittee meeting, somebody coming in and telling us, well, another district's got a 3.5% increase. So I went to that district and said, well, what are your premiums? Their premiums are the same as ours. So basically 3.5% means they're paying a lot more this year than we are. So they only have a 3.5%. The percentage increase doesn't matter. It's the cost of the premium.
Yeah.
That's
Right. So it's important to keep that in mind, that it's the actual cost. But either way, it's a lot of money.
One thing that I think could be interesting to see and build a story around is a percentage of our budget going to health insurance versus other districts across the state. And what does that look like? Are we way above everybody else? Are we right in the middle of the pack?
It's a hard thing to get for school districts because most
I
towns
know,
pay
I
the
know,
town
we're
thing, so it's a little more
regional,
difficult.
It's only regional.
It's tough to compare.
Right, it's a hard comparison. But health insurance costs, let's just keep going. As you can see, we're having a pretty dramatic increase in 27. I mean, we were relatively even keeled there for 3 or 4 years there. But in 26 and 27, we've had an increase in claims, an increase in costs, and that's where we're getting a large growth in going into 27. On the revenue side, so those are the main drivers there. So let's go on to the revenue side.
Can I make one comment?
Yeah,
on cost
go
side
ahead.
real quick? I just think it's an interesting comment as we're kind of going through this. If you look at, hey, we've made it 11 years, there's been a lot of great discipline, a lot of solid management, and there has been a couple tailwinds along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you look at the tailwinds of basically healthcare remained flat for 4 years, unheard of. Nobody had flat healthcare. Now we're kind of paying for it. Special ed went down 800,000. Well, during that 4-year period, you actually picked up 2 million of overall budget from where we are 5 years ago to today.
Right.
And then, we did have some COVID dollars. Now we were very prudent with the COVID dollars. We didn't put them into operating costs. But yeah, it doesn't matter. If you put them into capital or other stuff, it's still dollars we would have spent on other things. So there were a few tailwinds that are just they're gone.
It's almost like you managed it great for 10 years.
Right.
It's the truth. And now we're feeling the impacts of having it come back at us. Essentially.
And as it relates to health insurance, last year, we changed to the GIC program and
25, yeah.
25.
Yeah.
It's 25.
Yeah, it's
But
26 now.
we pushed that down the road, right? Like we were able to keep that cost relatively low as shown here. And it's eventually going to catch it, and it's catching up.
But had we not had as many high claims as we've had in the last couple of years, that would be less.
Yeah.
But
That's right.
It is what it
You know,
is.
as I say all the time, I've said it before, health insurance companies are not losing money off anybody.
So we went self-insured, which meant the pool reduces, which means those fluctuations are going to be more
Right.
dramatic.
And there is some talk about creating a larger, joint JPA with a larger risk pool, or whether we should actually take the entire group that's in the Mass Strategic Health Group and make it one risk pool. There's pluses and minuses to that, because there's other districts that are showing surpluses and are having very minimal rate increases because they haven't had claims. They don't want to take on our claims.
Right.
I can't blame them for that. All right, so revenue comes from, you want me to keep going? Okay. Revenue comes from multiple sources, grants and budget offsets like circuit breaker, school choice. It's the smallest portion of our budget. It's what we call, district funding. It's a very small piece, but there is some money that we do generate and put into the budget. State aid, we're going to show you, it's pitiful what our state aid has gone over for the last 12 years. And it's not going to change anytime soon. So the burden is on local aid, on Mendon-Upton. That is going to be the largest source of funding for us. And unfortunately, again, that falls into the limits within the levy that the town's can afford to fund for us. State aid is three things: Chapter 70, regional transportation, and charter school reimbursement. So again, we pay the tuition for charter school, then they reimburse us at a very small percentage for that cost. Just a little explanation on state aid. So the foundation budget is something calculated by DESE, and that's like the very base that a school district can spend on education. I don't think there's any school district that's at that base. Everybody spends more than that. The local contribution is what the state feels each town can contribute. It's based mostly on property values and resident income. And according to the state's data, S&P told me the same thing when I did the bond rating evaluation with them. Mendon and Upton are considered affluent towns. Target share, we've talked about this for years now, but target share is how much the state feels the town should be able to pay toward education as opposed to what the state should pay. They look for an optimal percentage, an average of 51-49, local 51, state 49. Both Mendon and Upton are at top target share, the cap that's allowed, which is 82.5%, which reflects the fact that they consider Mendon and Upton affluent towns. And then the Student Opportunity Act was supposed to revise all of this, but it was really targeted toward low-income communities. So although Cheryl did get one grant that I think was over 3 years that was substantial, that's about all we've gotten out of the Student Opportunity Act, where some really low-income communities got a couple $1 million. I think Milford got quite a bit. But that's sort of how that's all calculated. So our state aid, net state aid is going to be up $185,000, a big 1% increase in Chapter 70. That's the minimum aid, which is governor's budget was set at 75 a student. Typically, the House and the Senate increase that number, so we can hope that we might pick up another $50,000, $75,000. Not going to solve our problems, but it'll give us $50,000 or $75,000. It'll pay that shipping cost for the books. Transportation reimbursement is going up $20,000. Again, it's very minimal. We're going to show you how the rate of cost of transportation is far exceeding the reimbursement that we're getting. Same thing with charter. We're getting a $21,000 increase, but we're also getting about a $95,000 increase in tuition. So our total state up is a little less than 1.25%, which is not a lot of money, $185,000. If you look at state aid since FY16, which was the year of the last override, we've had a 0.83% increase in state aid. So again, that's not a lot of an increase compared to the rate of growth of running a school district. Again, the state feels that the burden for funding school districts should fall on the local community in towns like Mendon or Upton. Regional transportation, you can see the cost has gone up about 5.3%, but the reimbursement's only gone up 3.5%. So it's not quite keeping pace with that. Now, the reimbursement is based on only regular education to and from school for students who live 1.5 miles from the school they attend. We get nothing for anybody that lives within 1.5 miles of the school district that they attend. In a regional district, that's not hard to accomplish because, if you've got kids going to Misco or from Mendon kids going to Nipmuc, I know I live like 80 miles from Nipmuc, I feel like sometimes. So but the rate of reimbursement is not keeping pace with the rate of the cost. And we don't have a bad transportation contract. I don't think our costs are rising any higher than any other district, and I think we have pretty good rates. But it's expensive to run a bus company, to pay for the buses, pay the drivers. Drivers are looking for more money now. I can't blame them, but anyway, so that's one of the things that's affecting us. Charter school. This is kind of a busy chart, I believe, but it shows you how many kids we have in charter schools. Currently, over the last 5 or 6 years, we've had between 17, 18, 19 kids, not a lot. But for FY27, we're going to pay little under $414,000 for 19 kids to go to charter schools. And those tuitions are set by, I believe, the schools themselves and approved by the state. The reimbursement rate next year is looking at 23%. This year, currently, it's 20%. It was 14% the year before, so it varies. And the key is that these numbers will change. So like what they told us on the cherry sheet for 26 will not be the same as what it will end up being on June 30th. But we budget based on these numbers here.
I know the answer, but I'll ask. This isn't anything like Norfolk Aggie where
No.
we can pass this on.
No, these are charter schools. This is not non-resident. That's non-resident vocational.
Yeah, okay.
So it comes to the regional school district. Tag, you're in.
Never lets down.
All right, so again, the local aid is the biggest funding source that we have right now. So if you look at the enrollment percentages, it shifted a little bit back toward Mendon this year for FY27 from 26. Now this is based on the October 1 report that we submit to DESE in October of 25. So what the October, FY26 numbers as of October 1 determine FY27's enrollment percentage. Very slight shift toward Mendon. It's not really substantial, but it is a little bit of a shift.
Just check your.
Those numbers aren't mathing.
59, I have to check that then.
It's 56.
All right, let me check it again. You're right. You have 59 and 43, so we get 103%. That's a good deal. See, I went to the school with
Actually,
George.
just hang on to that, actually.
I will double check those and see what I did wrong in that math, because obviously there's something not right there. I hadn't noticed that.
Maybe the column's off because 57.
No, I do it on a spreadsheet. I have to just go and double check. There's several things you have to factor in so that particular percentage is based on students from each town that we pay for. So that includes out of district, it includes charter schools, it includes all that stuff. Doesn't include choice in students though. It does include choice out students. All right. A basic on how we assess, how the town's assessment is calculated. You basically take out all the prefix numbers, which are state aid, district aid, and minimum local contribution. Everything else is split by the enrollment percentage. So I'll check those again. Target share is part of foundation budget. Both towns are at 82.5%. It's recalculated.
Must be right, because it says 56.9, right?
Oh, so I put 59.6.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, so 56, I'm changing it on the other.
All right, so it's a typo. So these typing numbers, one of the things that well, never mind. I decided to go into a Google Slides thing, but I won't go into that. Target share does get recalculated every year. So the fact that we're at 82.5% this year means that next year we could be at 75%. It's a target that's moving. That's what it gets down to. But right now, based on the budget that we're submitting or referring to tonight, it's looking at about a $2.5 million increase in Mendon and about an almost $3 million increase in Upton. Those are substantial increases, $5.5 million in total. Oh, 24, right? See you changing it on mine.
Is there any, do you have any confusion? Because there is a lot of confusion when I talk to people around foundation budget, how much the foundation budget counts for our school budget and what local contribution from the state means relative to that. Because you're right, nobody's paying.
Quite honestly, since like 1998, when I was on school committee, nobody's ever asked me that question.
I was gonna say, who was asking you that?
No, honestly, that's where I got like tons of that at the school committee training session. There's a bunch of people saying, well, what the hell? why, if we're paying 82% of foundation is only this, then why are we paying? They
Because
don't
no-
understand.
Right, so, yeah, so certain things aren't calculated in what they call net school spending. Transportation is one of them.
Yes.
Health insurance, it varies depending on who pays the bill. So there's lots of things that factor into it. So it's not an apples versus apples.
It sounds like we
comparison.
really should be talking about, what the local contribution limits are that the state is setting. The foundation budget numbers are so, the whole thing is so convoluted at this point.
Right,
I find the best way is if someone has a question, then you just direct them almost to the state to be like, here, here it is, if you really want to go into the weeds on that, because it is what it is,
Yeah,
right. It is what it is.
but if the information's there, and if we found that we were receiving, if that was a frequently asked question that we received, then we can put that in an FAQ and have that description.
The last person
further,
asked me a
but
question.
I've never been asked it, but
Kathleen asked, my wife asked me.
Yeah.
this.
well, tell her she doesn't need.
No, I know. Like,
Tell her I said she doesn't need to know.
She had a legitimate question. She goes, well, now that we're at the 82.5 per cap, 82.5% cap, we won't have to pay any more, right? See how convoluted
So
that
minimum
gets?
so there's three parts to the local assessment. Minimum contribution is set by the state based on foundation budget. The transportation net of the transportation reimbursement is determined is a mandatory charge to the towns by the regional agreement. That's not necessarily has anything to do with the state, but it's something that's required by our regional agreement. The last piece is what they call operational additional. That typically is prior overrides that have been approved by voters to provide funding to the school district,
Right.
of which we do not get 100% of what has been approved historically over the years. Because when you do a Prop 2.5 override, the town's only required to give it to you for 1 year. The first year after that, it's part of the town budget. And again, because of the way these things have played out, you can't have one town giving you money, the other town doesn't have a matching proportion to. Those are the three pieces to it. So we didn't break it out in here. We're just talking about the entire local aid cost. But $5.5 million is a substantial increase on the local side. As far as the trends, keep going, Sam. We looked at CAGRs for this as well. Now, this is if the budget that we potentially are going to propose in 2 weeks is approved by voters, then our CAGR would be about 3.2% in Mendon and almost 4% in Upton.
Yeah.
If it's not approved, it would be considerably less. So that's sort of the trends of where we're at, but this is going on the assumption that things pass. As far as the district side, we funded through excess and deficiency, E&D. That basically is the equivalent to free cash for a town. It's if you have money left over at the end of the fiscal year, it goes into E&D and gets certified there. We transfer from our three revolving accounts that generate revenue for the school district. We transfer some money from that into the district's budget. We have a shared service agreement with the town of Upton for some tech services. We get interest on our account. We get Medicaid reimbursement from the federal government. That had been dwindling. It seems to be fairly good in the last 3 or 4 years. There's no guarantee that that's going to stay in the future, but it's there. So you can see we do have a $175,000 reduction in district revenue. That's because we can't continue to put $325,000 from those revolving accounts without cleaning them out. Something.
No,
Okay.
it's gonna put, I'll always say it to everybody, I'm sorry. Back 2 slides,
Back 2 slides. Okay, the CAGRs.
in CAGRs, you really need to, I think, you want to do the CAGR based on fiscal year 26, not
Absolutely.
27.
Not include. Okay, we can change that.
What you're gonna see is that percentage is gonna come way down.
Way down.
And
It's around 2.2%. I think
Yeah,
Mendon was
tell
like 1.5 and Upton was like 2.5.
See, that's,
Yeah.
you need that number.
Okay, so we can change that chart to not include 27.
And then honestly, and if people want to ask the question about what will that number be
Well, have
after
them both.
26?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the one you should emphasize is definitely 2026.
Okay, I have those charts already. I just added the next fiscal year onto the same chart.
yeah, you can show the bar. I actually think it's nice to show fiscal year 27, but I'd only do the CAGR for the first,
Okay.
up
Okay.
until 26.
Okay,
Sorry, thank you.
actually, this is the stuff we need to know for the hearing
Yeah.
because hopefully there'll be somebody in the audience then.
Sean's going to be there.
No,
All right, so let's go on. We talked about district revenue. We can go beyond that. Our utilization there, you can see in the last 24, 25, 26, we kind of hit those accounts harder than we have in the past. We're gonna have to come back on that in 27 because again, as Maureen showed in the very beginning, we said last year, we're hitting our one-time funds to get through FY 26, knowing that we're going to not be able to continue to do that. That's where you see that drop in 27. Same thing there. I can stop the.
Well, yeah, but I think what you really want to be able to do on this slide, I think, is to show at the end of the year, the percentage of the budget that sit in each.
Oh, okay.
Right, because the budget's gonna grow. I'm not saying this real well, but those numbers are, but we have a goal, right? So you can draw a goal line of 7%, and you can show where we've been above and below. our
Okay.
goal.
All right.
Happy to help with that.
You're taking, yeah, no, it's an easy thing to calculate. That just,
Just we know everything I circle is something for us to do.
what I need is like, if these don't cover it, we might ask you to send us an email. Someone else on this.
Actually, showing the amounts may not be the best approach here.
No, I know what Eric's saying. He's saying
Like, you
basically
want-
show
you
that
want
our
a
target's
flat
this
bar
amount.
with variance from the
Variance
percentage.
from the
So we
percentage.
can look at, what we call as our reserve funds and where they are and where we'd like them to be,
That's right.
that type of thing. Yes, that would probably be more effective on that type of a chart. All right, E&D, we've talked about this before. We are slowly going to be hitting E&D even harder for FY 27, which potentially means that our E&D certification that was about 1.8 million this year might only be 800,000 next year. Now, will we be able to turn money into E&D at the end of fiscal 26? I'm not so sure about that anymore, especially with the health insurance deficit we're running. I can only hope. I would love to sit here and tell you that snow and ice is doing really well, but that would be a lie. So we're not doing so well anymore. As a matter of fact, they were at Nisco when I stopped there on my way here and moving piles of snow, which are 18 feet high. The revolving accounts, these are the balances there. But again, we're going to deplete these things pretty seriously by the end of 27. So where we, had 1.1 million, we're going to have half of that at the end of 27. Now, they do generate revenue, those programs. So it's possible that with added enrollment, we could generate more revenue, but that was an estimate based on what we knew at the time. And then we've got federal grants, state grants, private grants, circuit breaker, school choice, all the things that we use to offset expenses that have to get charged to other accounts. With the federal grants, one of the big things we do pay for out of, especially the IDEA grants, are paraprofessionals for special ed.
Just go to the next slide.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So we've kind of projected where we think FY 27 is going to be.
We don't find out till July.
Right.
So it's just a guess, and we know it will go down.
Well, we do feel IDEA grants should be relatively stable, but the title grants probably will not be. I had heard at one point that there was a proposal to cut or eliminate titles 1, 2, and 4, but they were going to keep title 3, which I thought was strange, but like, why 3? But it's very unpredictable as far as how that goes. And then as far as the competitive grants, I can honestly say that between, Cheryl's work, the high school's done a bunch, the middle school's done a bunch, Ryan has done some. There's a lot of grants that are generated within our grant system that bring in money, but those grants are supposed to be supplemental, not supplant expenses. So you can kind of like be a little fishy on that. That's not the right term.
Not the right.
A little flexible on that.
Sometimes if it's something that we want to invest in, but it isn't in our operational, that's
Squish,
new,
squish.
we can use a
Is that what you
grant,
said?
like
Yeah.
OM for an example. Yeah.
But you have to be careful with that because you do have to report this all to the federal government, who I hope is not listening to.
We will,
No, they're doing the state of the union. They're not paying attention.
I'm sorry, which part of smells worse?
we just focused on this slide
The reason I don't speak in public a lot.
for the federal state grants, like those larger grants, we will pull together some of the, for the hearing. We'll have a slide on the remaining other grants, just to show how much that is for all the grants. But for tonight's purpose, we just gave you the federal state, which is what we usually give for tonight.
And I don't know, because I don't want to beat a dead horse with this, but is it even worth rolling the slide back another couple of years, right? Because you did have the COVID grants that we spread out over as many years as they allowed us to do. Like, it kind of goes back to that whole we had some tailwinds.
We could go back to like, say, FY '20 and say that between FY '20 and FY '26, we've received X amount of grants. These are entitlements, these are competitive.
Sure.
The COVID grants were kind of entitlement grants. They weren't competitive grants. But the federal government was putting a lot of money into the economy to help offset a pandemic. And that's gone now. And yes, we did not get tied into like funding, recurring costs with those.
Right.
Which a lot of districts did, so that has helped us. Circuit breaker, just a brief overview. It's supposed to offset the cost of special education. I just saw something today that I have to send to Frank about how Massachusetts is one of only 6 states that require districts to pay the cost and they get reimbursed based on a percentage as opposed to just covering them directly. I didn't read it in detail, but that was the gist of it. Now, circuit breaker, the way it works is you have to pay out of your own funds 4 times your per pupil expenditure. So the threshold is around 53,000 right now. And then anything beyond that is reimbursed at around 75%. And that includes transportation now. So we are getting more money for circuit breaker than we used to in previous years. But the purpose of that is specifically to offset out of district placements. So we have some of the specifics here, but the bottom line is whatever we take in one fiscal year has to be spent the following fiscal year. We're a year ahead, which is a good thing because it gives us some stability to predict and say, yes, we're going to appropriate 1.6 million next year because that's what we're taking in this year. We did apply for extraordinary relief for this year. I don't know if we'll get it. You typically have to be 25% above your rates from the previous year, and I don't know that we've exceeded that. But that's kind of where that account is. School choice, again, it's something that generates revenue for the school district. For FY, this only goes through 25, which was the most updated data I could get. I have dollar numbers for 26.
When I looked up, found out today, in our records, not what we get from Jesse, it should be close. We have 171 in and 38 out.
So it should be
But
approximately
they
what we,
haven't updated their master
Right.
chart, which is what this is.
right. So that's where I got this from. So that's kind of school choice. Now, as far as the revenue, the choice and offset, you can kind of see the tall green bars are what we take in and the small green bars are what we pay out. The one thing that's really critical, because I hear this a lot, this is a comment that I used to get was, well, why don't we just stop doing school choice? Well, we can do that, but all those light green bars, we still have to pay that, regardless of whether we're a choice district or not.
We make money on it, and to this point, if we don't do an override, that the red bar in the previous chart probably goes way up.
Yes,
and
so
the blue
in this
bar-
chart, the light green bar goes higher and the
Yeah,
dark
we
green
can't
bar
say
goes
anybody
lower.
had- Anybody knew it. 'Cause
So
we
it
have to-
creates
Right, it creates
domino
another
effect.
problem. Right, and that's what happened back like 2010, 2011, the last time we were in a substantial budget crisis. This is the end balance of the school choice accounts over years. It's been a healthy balance all along, but again, we're using a lot of that. We did appropriate 1.4 million out of this year. That's already been taken out of this, but the imbalances have been strong, and that's a good thing. I mean, school choice is a sort of a rainy day fund as well, in case some catastrophic emergency comes up. We have a source of money. But again, our choice revenue over the last, 7 years here has gone up 12.5%. That's pretty good as a rate of growth over, and that's, I think, an indicator of the strength of the school district. I hear it a lot. I've been doing a lot of things this year that I hadn't done in the past with NASBO, which is the School Business Officials Association. And constantly on meetings, they talk about how Mendon-Upton is setting the benchmark for other districts. The most recent one for me was the capital plan, where I did a presentation on capital, how we got our projects approved, and everybody there was just shocked at how well organized everything was, how good the website was. The tax calculator was a big hit. I had to send it out to 7 districts.
Right.
Basically, they said that this if you want a capital project, this is what you want to do, is what they did. So it's a sign that we're doing things right, and I think this reflects that as well. That's why people want to come to our, parents want their kids to come to our district. This is kind of the end balances. This is from a previous presentation we did. I'm not sure that we actually need this one anymore, but anyway, we're just going to move on.
And that's it.
And then I think that's it. That's a quick overview. I don't know if we've covered everything. I know everybody wants this covered. So some of you may be hearing this for the first time or hearing it for the 15th time. Maureen and I have been living this for the last week. So quite honestly, I'm sick of all these numbers, but it is part of the job. So, but Alyssa just heard it for the first time tonight. So you can tell how excited she is to know.
Can't wait for the minutes.
I know you all.
I do think going into the multi-board, and I said it earlier, but painting the picture of what reduced services looks like. It's going to be scary.
It's going to be hard to paint that by Thursday because
An idea, right? Like what does reduced services look like in terms of class size and because we need people to understand, right? Before we certify a budget, we want the towns to understand what that looks like. And they get their input there at the multi-board meeting. And
yeah, I agree. Like I said, I still, like, I've said it a bunch of times, the cost of running a school district, running a town is exceeding the cost of revenue growth on a state level. I think pretty much everywhere. I don't think we're unique at all what we're going through. I think other towns have done overrides and failed in previous years, made reductions, going back again and still getting pushback on it. In the words of Paul Flaherty, sometimes all people care about is what's it going to cost me. I don't care what you do, just what's it going to cost me. And somehow we have to convince the towns that the value of the school district is part of the value of the town. People come to these towns because we have a school district. People are choicing into this district because we have a good school district.
And, we're presenting the needs-based budget level. We've included, what's in it. We talked about what would be removed. If we didn't go forward with this level, we'll get you the numbers. Numbers are, the swing between them, it's not too big, but we'll get you what that is by tomorrow. And, but we'll want input too, because this is your budget, the school committee's budget that will go forward on that date to be certified. So if there are different pieces of information you're looking for specifically that we didn't provide or that you want provided by then, make sure you let us know so we can get that to you as soon as possible.
one other thing, and we've talked about this in budget, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit here about financing the high quality curriculum. I hate paying interest on things, especially when the interest rates are 7% or whatever they are. And I don't know if we can do it, but I would be more interested in, like, say the cost of high quality curriculum costs $600,000, but you finance it going through 3 years, or you have to pay over 3 years. I'd rather take the hit plus $100,000 in a year and then put that $100,000 into a separate line, a separate account where it stacks up for the next 6 years. And then you built it into your operating budget, and then you spend it in, the year of renewal, but you already have the money because it's built into operating.
Right, so the people that do the financing will only let you borrow what the invoice is for.
No, I'm not saying borrow. I'm saying build it into operational.
Oh,
entirely.
keep the cost there even though you don't spend it.
Right.
Right.
Like, that's the way I would go. And I know that adds a whole lot to the budget, and you're gonna have to do it for all of the high quality curriculum and fortunately, we're in a year where we're doing it for K through 8. But you don't pay interest on it. It shows responsibility on managing the budget, and you get better budget sustainability over a long period of time because you're never getting that $600K cost, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, for simplicity.
Some of the reasoning for why we haven't been able to do that is because we have had to keep reducing in order to be in level surplus budget. So that in order to stay within the revenue of the towns. So that's been where we've had to. I absolutely get what you're saying. Now that we have a curriculum review cycle well established, we're able to start seeing and anticipate in advance to like what those larger purchases might be. We had math a while ago. Next up is ELA. You'll hear about other areas too. Which is part, once you get into a full cycle, you can plan out a little bit better on that too. No. Good point.
Any other questions or comments on the budget?
The only thing I'd ask again is like, a lot of the feedback is good for us because we can, make adjustments to this. So if you can, like, I know Maureen's taking notes and she can read these notes, but I can't.
I think
But
they're-
if you could like send us emails and say, hey, I noticed this, could you check this? I'm not saying your handwriting is not neat.
Yeah.
It's making sense of it.
The only thing that terrifies me, right, is I have no visibility into the next 5-6 years.
Well, so again, if you remember a year ago, you had somebody come and give you, an independent person give you a 5-year plan. We're already off of it on year 1.
Yeah.
It's really hard to predict.
No, I
These are-
understand all that. Believe me, I understand that it's hard to predict. But if we have no way to communicate out what that means to people, then we're at a loss. Because then every year we have constraints like this, we end up in like less faith from the public every single time we come up with that. That was one of the reasons why we had that 5-year assertion with Joe, which turned into a joke. Thank God. But we have to be able to give some sort of a feeling for what our budget problems really are long term. If we don't have that, then we're setting ourselves up for a really bad failure a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever. I think that's a really big exposure. Doesn't really make us look good as far as intelligent planning. And you guys have been honestly very, very good at intelligent planning for a number of years.
I wish we could have the crystal ball of the 5-year plan. I'm a planner. I wish everything could be planned out, right? Part of that is working with the town. So that's why multi-board kind of conversations are really important. Because we can say and predict our strategic priorities out and those costs. We can predict if we have the trend of health insurance and it remains this, we can have assumptions, right? They're all gonna be over what the revenue of the town is. So that's what he came forward when Pat Collins came forward last year. It was all way above what we're going to the towns for. So we can do that.
No, but even
But
that would be
then
good information.
there's always gonna be the swing, right? There's always gonna be the year that when we've been trending 9% health insurance, 9 to 10, sometimes while back, we're down at 0 and 1. I mean, we weren't even getting increases right a while ago. Like we're trending at that and then suddenly we don't know what claims are gonna be. I think people understand that, or out of district, so but those swings are $1 million, $2 million.
Even that is great information for the town to be able to plan. That's great information. And especially you get some more creative ideas coming from the town side saying, hey, maybe we can do some things with our budget to figure this out. But without giving everybody visibility, I mean, yes, we're protecting them from not showing all the bad news, but bad news allows them to plan for the future as well. We're the biggest expense of both towns.
Yeah, and that's what it would show though. It would show that we're always, because
Should show.
our costs are always gonna be increasing at a higher rate than that 2.5 levy can
But
meet.
and I
And there are
think
ways to show that visually, in a separate kind of presentation or to the community, but it won't be exact. It's just they're all based off of assumptions.
But this is why, and I think the towns would have a lot of confidence if we start building in the cost of things over years, like iPads, like high quality curriculum. We build that into our operating budget, so we're not getting hit with those costs. $200,000 this year, $700,000 for high quality curriculum the next, right? And there's this kind of, but if we can build that into our budget, our operating budget, then it's only going to be the things like health insurance, which everybody can relate to. Everybody knows health insurance is a terrible place, incredibly expensive, and the volatility of it for us having to cover claims, like there's that piece to it, and everybody can relate to that. And they have, I think towns would have a whole lot of confidence if those costs are built into our budget. And I think we can do that. It's just budget. Anything else on the budget presentation? Sure, our student reps are having an absolute blast over here.
They were wishing it was another snow day.
Yeah, you signed up, you said you were interested in this, they're interested.
All right.
You guys have questions? I mean, you just heard more than anybody else here.
Great presentation.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
So let's just say that we go ahead with the needs-based budget, the towns approve it, you get the $5.5 million, whatever the number ends up being. Are we back next year trying to level fund a budget and looking to reallocate, like, is that just the nature of the beast at this point with 10% insurance and the other, special ed, placements rising or everything? Are we just in this vicious cycle forever? Like, I mean, you can build in $100,000 for curriculum, but that's not, setting us up for long-term success. That doesn't,
Well,
just, what's the, this is probably not something you answer to, but like, is there a long-term solution here? Not just a plan, but like, if you were running.
So,
I mean, part of the, I'll answer one
Okay,
thing and you
yeah.
go in depth on everything else. A long-term solution is that, our state funding system is failing us.
Mhm.
Right? And we're limited by the state regulations of 2.5, where we can only go up. So that we have this limitation here. And then the state, I mean, if we go back to that state, how much money we're getting from the state? We're getting nothing from the state.
Yes.
And that's why we're not the only ones. Like some of the data we'll share later on when it heads towards if the towns decide to go forward with, overrides, and asking for that. But we'll show it's not just us, it's everyone. Everyone is going for operational overrides. And in the last 3 years, we just made it another year or two beyond post-COVID because no one has the funding. No one.
Yeah.
Because we have a statewide problem. So I have some articles on it. There's things, I think that's messaging I can share with you. So you all have that again to like speak to that because because we're local, it feels like this personal problem here because we're the ones dealing with it, but everyone is, but you say what you're gonna say.
well, the only thing I can add to that is
Is that a conversation that's like happening at this state house level? Like, I don't even know. I don't.
Yeah, so like when I say the legislative breakfast,
Yeah.
when the state legislators are coming tomorrow to Worcester County, we're gonna present our priorities from Worcester County to address, say, what can you do to address this issue? But we're advocating for, there's a lot of rural districts that need help in our region, but like circuit breaker is something that impacts everyone across the state. So they're looking at that. Even if they increase the chapter 70, up, that always is going to help us. I always advocate, if they're next to me, I say regional transportation, because I know that really helps us. And then we have a whole team for MASS for superintendents. MASC, I assume, has teams, but we have a legislative committee that goes and actively advocates on the bills that can solve the long-term problems. And like next week is Tri-County, and they just asked me to present a section at the breakfast on rural, because we're the closest to rural in Tri-County, not quite, but to talk about how we're underfunded and how we're impacted by not receiving any of the additional SOA funds. So that's what we're doing. But some of it takes 5 years for them to do a review or special ed review on that. Unfortunately, there's short-term little fixes and then more long-term that needs to be addressed with studies that they're doing.
Yeah, and there are two things. I want to second what Maureen said. I looked at Grafton. They had an override in 2014 and then again in 2020, and then they went last year and failed, and now they're going again this year. So like they had one 2 years before us and then 4 years after us. And it varies. Maybe they didn't go for as much, and that's why they had to go back. But the point is, they've been for overrides more than us over the same time.
And Northbridge went last year and it failed. They're coming back and had to make major cuts. a good case study, of lack of funding there and the impact, negative spiral impact it's had on that town. What's is going, is it Bellingham? They're
Northbridge is one of
right
our big choice in districts.
there. Yeah, it is. Yeah. There are, I think 4 just around us going, and I was at my last meeting for overrides, just kind of.
Well, didn't Franklin do one last year and failed?
Yeah,
I think
2
they're
in a
coming
row.
forward.
Yep.
The only other thing I would add to it is there was a guy who was on the Mendon Finance Committee for years. And I think it's the nature of government, town government right now. Every year he would say the same thing. This is going to be a tough budget year. For 30 years, it was going to be a tough budget year. Every year is a tough budget year.
It is.
And I think,
Some
to your
worse than
question,
others.
yes, I think is a cyclical thing that we're always going to have to be trying to scrape together enough to do what we need to do, possibly reallocate, do different adjustments. I think that's just the nature of public education.
But that's a really good question. If you can send that to us in an email or after, just so I get that, because
He's
I
got to
want,
remember it now.
because I want to be able to,
Verbatim.
that is a question that people ask though, and there are answers to it, and it's good for the FAQ. That's a really good question.
But also I think I wouldn't call it $100,000 a year, like you have to, it's math, it's English, it's right, it's all of the stuff, plus iPads, like when you add it all up, you're probably talking $1 million a year and stuff. So if we can plan for that, sure, it's not gonna make or break an override, but it'll, number one, instill confidence across the towns, and number two, just better budget practices. All right. Well, that was fun. Anything else on the budget presentation? And moving on to school choice. Thanks, Jack.
No, I spent enough time at the grown-up table, going back to the kiddie table to
So
share.
what we do, usually we do it at their previous meeting, we just didn't get to it, but about this time, usually early February, we'll bring forward every year, you need to identify if you want to remain a school choice district, and then we have to report out to DESE in a list that says that we're school choice. We have, it is posted on our website already, just to be transparent, because usually we do this like right before February, and it's up there, so people have been applying. So if you vote not to, then we'll let them know, but we're operating with the fact that we probably would be moving forward on that. We don't determine the numbers until May, and then we'll let you know what those numbers are.
Any discussion on school choice? If we should not be a school choice district? Is it more?
I think we already discussed that, right? How
The numbers are good.
the
The numbers are in our favor.
The dark green number is high and the light green number is low, and leads to a surplus, and relying on that surplus for years now. I think that we continue to be a school choice district.
It's a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, school committee subcommittees, budget subcommittee. The next budget subcommittee was scheduled for this Thursday, but instead we'll do the multi-board meeting here at Nipmuc, 7 o'clock. What time is that?
6
o'clock. 6 o'clock. Looking forward to that and getting input from the towns. Vicky, policy.
Last 2 weeks ago, we had brought forward policy DD for first reading, so now bringing forward for a second reading and looking for a motion and vote to approve that. Right, again, up the funding proposals and applications, we get updated to make sure it complies with Mass General Law and also just aligns with the MASC's proposed funding.
Any discussion on DD funding proposals and applications? Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve DD funding proposals and applications.
Motion to approve DD funding proposal and application. Second.
Second.
Second by Carrie, all in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Superintendent eval. Carrie?
We heard from Maureen an update on a February 9th meeting. At the end of the year reflection in April.
And with that, other matters not anticipated by the committee within 48 hours. None. Future agenda items, more budget presentations. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 9:14. Second. Second by Matt, all in favor.